When my husband Thomas passed away, I never imagined the real nightmare was just beginning. Looking into my daughter-in-law Vanessa's face, I understood the meaning of hatred. From now on, "This house is mine," she said with an icy smile while throwing my suitcases onto the sidewalk. "Can't you go to a nursing home?" I didn't say anything, just smiled. She had no idea I was keeping a secret that would change everything, the $19 million that Thomas had left exclusively for me, along with our coastal villa in Savannah that she didn't even dream existed. But before we continue, I'm curious, where are you listening from? Funny how we can be miles apart and still meet in the same story, isn't it? The casket descended slowly into the cold earth that rainy September morning. After 38 years of marriage, he left with the same serenity with which he lived, leaving only silence and an emptiness that seemed to fill every atom of my being. We had faced so many storms together, but this one I would have to cross alone. As the last people dispersed from the cemetery, I felt a hand touch my shoulder. It was Marcus, our only son. "Mama, let's go home. You need to rest." I nodded silently, unable to transform into words the whirlwind of emotions consuming me. Beside me, Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, remained unmoved. There wasn't a single tear in her eyes, no sign of mourning in her expression, just a calculating look that surveyed each person present, as if she were tallying who might be useful in the future. During the drive back, the silence in the car was only interrupted by the sound of rain hitting the windshield. Marcus drove while Vanessa constantly checked her phone. Not a single word was exchanged. The house that Thomas and I built together in Atlanta, the one where we raised our son and planted dreams, now seemed like a strange place, as if all the memories had been swept away along with my husband's soul. When we arrived, I noticed something odd at the garage entrance. My 3 suitcases, the ones I had packed to stay a few days at Marcus's house after the burial, were stacked at the entrance, exposed to the drizzle that continued falling. "What does this mean?" I asked, my voice overwhelmed by exhaustion. Vanessa shrugged and sketched a cold smile. "I thought you had already understood. Now that Thomas is no longer here, things are going to change." Marcus looked at the ground, avoiding my gaze. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Son, what does your wife mean by this?" My voice came out almost as a whisper. "It's temporary, Mama," he stammered. "Vanessa thinks it would be better if you stayed somewhere else." Before I could process what was happening, Vanessa stepped forward. Her expensive perfume invaded my nostrils when she approached. "From now on, this house is mine," she declared with a firmness that left me stunned. "You can go to a nursing home. It would be most convenient for all of us." The cruelty of those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I looked at Marcus, hoping he would defend me, that he would say something, anything. But he remained silent, like a shadow of himself, dominated by that woman I could never really know. I breathed deeply. There were no tears to shed. The shock gave way to a strange calm, as if a part of me had disconnected from reality. "I understand," I responded simply. I took my suitcases and carried them to the small utility room in the back of the property, a place Thomas used as a tool storage. The smell of humidity and mold invaded my nostrils. A small improvised bed had been placed in a corner next to an old table where a dog bowl rested. The message was clear. I was worth less than a pet to them. I sat on the edge of that hard bed and looked around. The walls, stained by humidity, and the small window that barely let in daylight would be my new home. I didn't allow tears to fall, though they threatened to overflow at any moment. Thomas always said that in moments of greatest pain, silence was our best defense. "When they think you're defeated, Marilyn," he used to tell me, "that's when you must save your strength. The right silence is your most powerful weapon." As night advanced, I remained seated in that humid room, remembering every detail of my life with Thomas. The generous and prudent man who always planned everything, who took care of every detail, even for when he would no longer be here. What Vanessa and Marcus didn't know was that Thomas, in his silent wisdom, had protected me. Before his illness worsened, he transferred all our most valuable assets to my name. A beach house in Savannah that few knew existed, shares in profitable companies, an overseas account. In total, approximately $19 million. I looked at the locket I wore around my neck, Thomas's gift on our last wedding anniversary. Inside it, a small compartment held the key to the safe, where all the documents were secure. A slight smile formed on my lips as the rain continued falling outside. Vanessa thought I was just a defenseless and disposable widow. She had no idea who I really was or what was coming. That night I couldn't sleep. The sound of rain on the metal roof marked the hours like a relentless metronome. I spent the dawn planning every step I would take from there on. Not for revenge, but for justice, for respect for Thomas's memory, and mainly for myself. When dawn broke, I heard Vanessa's footsteps on the floor above. The clinking of cups and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee descended to my small room, reminding me that I would soon be summoned for my new duties in the house that was once mine. I fixed myself up as best I could with the little clothing I had in the suitcases. I combed my gray hair and looked in the broken mirror hanging on the wall. At 62 years old, my face carried the marks of an entire lifetime, but my eyes still shone with silent determination. "Today the game begins, Thomas," I whispered to the emptiness, "and you taught me very well how to play." When I climbed the stairs and entered the kitchen, Vanessa was already seated at the table, manipulating her tablet. She barely lifted her eyes when I entered. "Oh, you're here already. Breakfast should be served at 7 o'clock sharp. Marcus wants scrambled eggs with bacon, and the children prefer pancakes. I just want a fruit salad and a green juice." I didn't respond. I simply put on the apron that was hanging near the stove and began preparing what she had requested. While cutting the fruit, I observed Vanessa from the corner of my eye. She seemed too comfortable in the role of lady of the house, as if she had rehearsed this moment for years. The children, Jordan and Layla, came down for breakfast still sleepy. Layla, with her 9 years, hugged me timidly. "Grandma, why are you in the kitchen making food?" Before I could answer, Vanessa intervened. "Grandma is going to help us more around the house now. Isn't that great? This way you can see her every day." The girl nodded, confused, while Jordan just shrugged and concentrated on his phone. Marcus appeared shortly after, dressed for work, avoiding eye contact with me. "Good morning," he said, kissing the children's foreheads and Vanessa's lips. I served breakfast in silence, observing every movement, every interaction. Nobody invited me to sit at the table. I stood near the counter, like an employee waiting for new orders. "The children should be ready for school in 20 minutes, announced Vanessa, getting up. "And you can start cleaning the house after they leave. Oh, and don't forget to feed the dogs." I nodded, maintaining a neutral expression. Vanessa approached, lowering her voice so only I could hear. "You should be grateful that I'm allowing you to stay here. Many mothers-in-law don't have that luck." When everyone left, I remained alone in that kitchen that until a few days ago was the heart of my home. I cleaned the table, washed the dishes, and organized everything meticulously. Each movement was executed with calculated calm, as if I were just watching myself from the outside. While sweeping the living room floor, my eyes settled on the photograph that still occupied a prominent place on the shelf. Thomas and me, embraced in front of the sea the day we bought our beach house in Savannah, a property that Vanessa was completely unaware of. At that moment, I decided I needed to act with intelligence, wait for the right moment, observe every movement, every habit, every weakness, and mainly understand what was really happening in that house. During the following week, I adapted to the new routine. I got up before everyone else, prepared breakfast, cleaned the house, washed and ironed clothes. Vanessa didn't miss the opportunity to humiliate me with small comments or unnecessary orders. "Marilyn, you forgot to clean under the sofa. How careless. This plate still has a stain. Are you losing your sight?" Marcus, for his part, seemed increasingly distant. He arrived late from work, always with a worried expression. I tried to talk to him several times, but he always diverted the topic or claimed to be busy. It was on one of those nights, when everyone had already retired, that I decided to investigate Thomas's office. The place was exactly as he had left it, books aligned on the shelf, the old leather armchair where he spent hours reading, the solid oak desk we bought together on our 10th wedding anniversary. Carefully, I opened the desk drawer where Thomas kept important documents. It was empty. All the folders, contracts, and papers had disappeared. I felt a chill down my spine. Someone had searched everything. I continued my silent search. At the back of the shelf, behind a row of books, I found what I was looking for. The small safe that Thomas installed years ago, known only to the two of us. Using the key I kept in the locket, I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, I found the original documents of all our properties, including the beach house, plus the will that Thomas had made, leaving me as the sole beneficiary. There was also an envelope addressed to me in my husband's unmistakable handwriting. My dear Marilyn, if you're reading this letter, it means I'm no longer by your side. Forgive me for that. I promised we would be together until the end, but life has its own plans. During all these years, I observed with concern the changes in our son. The kind man we raised seems to have gotten lost under Vanessa's influence. I fear that when I depart, they will try to take advantage of you, of your kindness, of your gentleness. That's why I took measures. I transferred everything we built together to your name. Our lawyer, Jerome Carter, has all the instructions. Look for him when you think it's necessary. Don't let them take away your dignity, my love. You've always been stronger than you think. With all my love, forever, Thomas. Silent tears ran down my face as I held the letter against my chest. Thomas always knew. He always protected me, even knowing he wouldn't be here. I carefully put everything back in the safe, except for a copy of the most important documents that I kept in my purse. I returned to my little room in the annex with a new feeling growing inside me. Determination. The next morning, when Vanessa handed me a list of household tasks even more extensive than usual, I just smiled and nodded. "Any problem, Marilyn?" she asked, suspicious of my sudden docility. "None," I responded calmly. "I'm just adapting to my new reality." She smiled, satisfied with what she interpreted as my submission. Little did she know that while I cleaned the house and attended to the tasks, I observed every movement, every whispered phone conversation, every document that passed through her hands. I began to notice a pattern. Every Tuesday afternoon, Vanessa would leave saying she was going to the beauty salon, but she would return without any apparent change. On Thursdays, Marcus would stay late at the office claiming extra work, and both seemed worried about money despite the luxurious lifestyle they maintained. One night, while serving dinner, I heard Vanessa comment to Marcus, "We need to resolve that matter about the property in Hilton Head. The buyer is getting impatient." Marcus seemed tense. "We can't sell something that isn't legally ours." Vanessa lowered her voice, but I could still hear her. "Your father is dead. Who's going to contest it?" I pretended not to have heard, but my heart raced. They were planning to sell properties that now belonged to me, without my knowledge or consent. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I made a call from my old cell phone that Vanessa considered too useless to bother checking. "Mr. Jerome, this is Marilyn, Thomas Hayes' wife. We need to talk urgently." Jerome Carter's law office was exactly as I remembered it. Shelves full of legal books, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and that aura of discretion that always made me feel safe. At 71 years old, the lawyer still maintained the same elegant posture and perceptive gaze that inspired confidence. "Mrs. Marilyn, my deepest condolences for Thomas," he said, squeezing my hands between his. "Loyal friend, man of integrity, an irreparable loss." I sat in the leather chair in front of his desk, my hands trembling slightly as I opened my purse to take out the documents I had found. "Jerome, I need to understand exactly what my current situation is," I spoke, trying to keep my voice firm. "And I need your complete discretion." The lawyer adjusted his glasses and examined each paper I placed in front of him. His face remained impassive, but I noticed the slight contraction in his forehead as he read. Thomas was extremely meticulous, as always, he commented after a few minutes. He transferred all the main assets to your name before his condition worsened. The house where you live, the property in Savannah, the financial investments, everything is legally in your name. And what about the rest? I asked, remembering Vanessa's mentions about properties. There are some real estate properties that remained in Thomas's name, but his will is clear. You are the universal beneficiary. He took a folder from his drawer. Here you have a copy of the will already registered with the notary. Nobody can contest it. A momentary relief washed over me, but it was soon replaced by a new concern. And if they try to sell something without my consent? Jerome removed his glasses and looked directly into my eyes. Marilyn, if they attempt to conduct any transaction with properties that are legally in your name, they would be committing a crime. Document falsification, fraud. He paused. Is there any evidence that they're planning something like that? I told him about the conversation I had overheard and about my current situation in the house. The lawyer's eyes hardened. What they're doing to you is inadmissible. We could initiate legal action immediately to... I raised my hand, interrupting him gently. Not yet, Jerome. I want to fully understand what's happening before taking any action. What do you plan to do then? He asked, intrigued. Observe, document, and when the right moment comes, act. I took a deep breath. But I need your help with some things. I left the office 2 hours later with a well-outlined plan and a feeling of empowerment I hadn't felt in weeks. Jerome had helped me understand exactly my rights and the measures we could take when necessary. Before returning home, I made a stop at a small electronics store where I bought 2 discrete recording devices and a tiny camera that could be easily hidden. I wasn't proud of having to resort to such methods, but I needed concrete evidence to protect myself. When I returned, I found the house empty, except for Layla, who was sitting on the porch reading a book. Her face lit up when she saw me. "Grandma, where were you? Mama got angry when she couldn't find you to prepare lunch." I sat beside her, touching her dark hair, so similar to Thomas's when he was young. "I had to resolve some matters, dear. Adult things." Layla lowered her voice, looking around as if she feared being heard. "Mama said you're going away soon to a special place for old people." "Is it true, Grandma?" My heart shrank. "And what do you think about that, Layla?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you to leave. I already lost Grandpa." I hugged her tight, feeling her small head rest on my shoulder. "Don't worry, dear. I'm not going anywhere." Later, when Vanessa returned with Jordan, she barely contained her irritation upon seeing me. "Where were you?" "I had to order food because you weren't here to prepare lunch." "I went to the doctor," I lied naturally. "I have that routine checkup every month, remember?" Vanessa frowned but didn't question further. She probably didn't even bother to remember my medical appointments. "Well, now that you're here, you can serve dinner at 7 o'clock. Marcus is bringing an important guest." That evening, I prepared an elaborate dinner, like in the old times when Thomas and I received friends. Marcus's guest was a middle-aged man named Reggie Miles, who introduced himself as a real estate broker. Throughout the entire meal, I noticed meaningful glances exchanged between him, Marcus, and Vanessa. "So, Marcus," Reggie commented while savoring the dessert I had prepared, "that property in Hilton Head is still available?" Marcus cast a nervous glance in my direction before responding. "We're finalizing some details. Everything will be resolved soon." After the guest left, I waited for everyone to go to sleep to put my plan into action. Carefully, I placed one of the recording devices in the living room and another in the office where Vanessa and Marcus usually had their most private conversations. The next morning, while preparing coffee, I noticed Vanessa on the phone speaking in low tones on the porch. "Yes, the property in Hilton Head. No, she doesn't know anything. It's just a matter of time until we resolve the documentation." My heart accelerated. The property in Hilton Head was an investment Thomas had made years earlier. According to the documents I found, it had been transferred to my name shortly before his illness worsened. In the following days, I continued my apparently submissive routine while collecting information through the recordings and accidentally overheard conversations. The picture that was forming was alarming. Vanessa and Marcus planned to sell several properties that now belonged to me, falsifying documents with Reggie's help, who clearly wasn't just a broker, but an accomplice in this scheme. One afternoon, while cleaning the couple's room, a task that Vanessa insisted on assigning me, probably to remind me that the space that was once mine now belonged to her, I found something that confirmed my suspicions. A folder containing falsified copies of property transfer documents with my forged signature. With trembling hands, I photographed everything with my phone and immediately sent the images to Jerome. His response was quick. "This is evidence of a crime." "Can we act now?" "Not yet," I replied. "I want to see how far they'll go." The opportunity to discover more came in the form of a dinner that Vanessa organized at home. Among the guests were Reggie and his wife, plus a man who was introduced as Derek Vaughn, potential buyer of a family investment. During dinner, I served the dishes and discreetly observed the interactions. Derek seemed like a successful businessman, one of those who doesn't ask many questions when a deal seems too advantageous. "So, Marcus, when can we finalize the Hilton Head transaction?" he asked while I served the wine. "My investors are anxious." Vanessa intervened with her most charming smile. "We're just waiting for some final signatures." You know how bureaucracy is, right? When I returned to the kitchen to get dessert, I heard Vanessa whisper to Marcus, "He's offering $5 million. We need to close this before the old woman realizes anything." That night I couldn't sleep. The confirmation of their criminal intentions was there, recorded in audio and witnessed by me. But one piece of the puzzle was still missing. How far was Marcus involved? Was he an active perpetrator or just manipulated by Vanessa? The next morning I decided to take a risk. While Vanessa was in the shower, I gently knocked on the office door where Marcus worked on his laptop. "Son, can I talk to you for a minute?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Marcus seemed surprised and somewhat uncomfortable. "Now isn't a good time, Mama. I'm busy." "It's about the property in Hilton Head," I said directly, observing his reaction. His face paled instantly. What property?" "The property that you and Vanessa are planning to sell to Derek Vaughn." Marcus got up abruptly, looking toward the door to make sure no one was listening. "How do you know that?" "You shouldn't know about that." "I know much more than you imagine, son," I responded calmly. "I know about the falsified documents, about the plans to sell properties that don't belong to you." He ran his hand over his face, suddenly looking aged and defeated. "Mama, don't you understand? We have serious financial problems. Vanessa has debts you can't imagine. And the solution is to commit crimes? Forge my signature? Treat me like a burden to be discarded in a nursing home?" He didn't respond, just sank into his chair, avoiding my gaze. "Marcus, look at me," I asked, feeling a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "Your father raised you better than that." "He always made everything easy for you," Marcus murmured with a trace of resentment in his voice. "He left everything to you without thinking about me, about my children. Is that what Vanessa told you?" I asked, surprised by his distorted perception. "Marcus, your father secured your future in other ways. The fund for the children's education, the initial capital for your business. He just wanted to protect me, knowing I would be alone. Vanessa says you're too old to manage so much money, that it will eventually end up in our hands anyway." The coldness of that statement hit me like a blade. That was it. They were just waiting for me to die, or perhaps accelerating the process by forcing me to live in deplorable conditions. Before I could respond, we heard Vanessa's footsteps approaching the office. I quickly changed my expression and tone of voice. "So, son, think about what we discussed regarding that peach cobbler recipe. Your children will love it," I said with a forced smile when Vanessa entered. She looked at us with suspicion. "What are you two whispering about?" "My mother was just asking me to buy some ingredients for a dessert she wants to make for the children," Marcus responded quickly. Vanessa smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "How sweet of her. But you don't have time to go shopping now, Marcus. We have that meeting with Reggie in an hour." When I left the office, I felt Vanessa's gaze drilling into my back. She knew something was happening, and that made her even more dangerous. That afternoon, while everyone was out, I made a call to Jerome. I explained the conversation I had with Marcus and the confirmations I obtained about their intentions. "Marilyn, we now have sufficient evidence to take legal action," the lawyer affirmed. "We can request a court order to prevent any transaction with your properties and initiate criminal proceedings against Vanessa and anyone else involved in this scheme." "And what about Marcus?" I asked. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Your son is implicated, Marilyn. Even if he's only an accomplice by omission, he'll have to answer for his actions." The idea of seeing my son facing legal consequences for his mistakes broke my heart. Despite everything, he was still my son, the child I cradled in my arms, whom I taught to take his first steps. "I need more time, Jerome. I want to give Marcus a chance to do the right thing." "Time is running out, Marilyn. According to what you've told me, they're about to finalize the sale of the Hilton Head property." "Just a few more days," I insisted. "I have a plan." After hanging up, I sat on the small bed in the annex, contemplating my next move. I could no longer postpone it. It was time to confront not only Marcus, but also Vanessa with all the evidence I had collected. The next morning, I found an opportunity when Vanessa left for the beauty salon and the children were at school. Marcus was alone in the office working on some documents that he quickly hid when I entered. "We need to talk, son. No interruptions, no excuses," he sighed, seeming resigned. "What do you want, Mama?" I placed on the table an envelope containing copies of all the legitimate property documents, along with photos of the falsified documents I found. "I want you to see what you're about to do," I said calmly. "And I want you to understand the consequences." Marcus examined the papers, his face becoming increasingly pale. This is serious," he murmured, running his fingers through the documents. "How did you get all this?" "Your father taught me to always be prepared," I responded simply. "Marcus, what you're doing isn't just morally wrong. It's a crime. Document falsification, attempted fraud, embezzlement. It was Vanessa's idea," he shot back like a child trying to escape blame. "She said it was just a matter of anticipating the inheritance, that you didn't need all that money at your age. And you agreed to send me to a nursing home and treat me like a servant in my own house?" He lowered his eyes, unable to face my gaze. "The debts, Mama. Vanessa has enormous debts that she hid from me. When I found out, it was already too late." "And the solution was to try to steal from your own mother?" I asked, feeling a deep pain in my chest. A heavy silence settled between us. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning to set, casting golden light through the office window, the same office where Thomas spent hours planning our future, ensuring our security. "What are you going to do now?" Marcus finally asked, his voice almost a whisper. "Are you going to report us to the police?" "That depends on you," I responded firmly. "I have two conditions. First, you immediately cancel any negotiation for the sale of properties. Second, Vanessa needs to know that the game is over. She'll never accept that. Then you'll have to choose, Marcus, your wife or your freedom." At that moment, we heard the sound of the front door opening. Vanessa had returned. Marcus quickly collected the documents and hid them in the drawer. "Think carefully, son," I said quietly before leaving the office. "Tomorrow I want your answer." That night was the longest of the recent weeks. Lying on the hard bed in the annex, I heard the sounds from the main house. Raised voices coming from Marcus and Vanessa's room, doors slamming, hurried footsteps in the hallway. The storm was just beginning. By morning, Vanessa came down for breakfast with red eyes and a tense face. She completely ignored my presence while serving herself coffee. Marcus appeared minutes later, equally dejected. The children, sensing the tension, ate in unusual silence. "Children, finish quickly. I don't want you to be late for school," Vanessa ordered, her voice harsher than usual. As soon as Layla and Jordan left, Vanessa turned to me, her eyes shining with rage. "What are you scheming, you meddling old woman?" I remained calm, carefully placing my teacup on the table. Just protecting what's mine, Vanessa. Marcus told me about your conversation, she continued, approaching menacingly. Do you think you can blackmail us? That you can destroy our family? The only person destroying this family is you, Vanessa, I responded without raising my voice. With your lies, your debts, your greed, she laughed, a cold sound without humor. Look at yourself, an old woman who can barely climb a flight of stairs. What are you going to do with all that money? With properties you can't even manage? That's exactly the point, Vanessa. It's my money, my properties. I decide what to do with them. She slammed her hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. You're being selfish. You only think about yourself while we could use that money to give a better future to your grandchildren. Don't use the children as an excuse for your greed, I refuted, standing up to face her. Thomas guaranteed their future with a generous education fund that you probably don't even know exists. This seemed to take her by surprise. Marcus, who was witnessing the confrontation in silence, finally intervened. Mama, we can't continue like this. We need to find a solution. The solution is simple, I responded, looking directly at Vanessa. You cancel all the illegal negotiations, return all the falsified documents, and we talk like adults about how to resolve the debt situation. I'm willing to help, but on my terms. Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. And why would I do that? Why would I give up millions just because an old woman decided she wants to keep everything? I took my cell phone from my pocket and showed her the screen. Because I have recordings of all your conversations about document falsification, about plans to send me to a nursing home against my will, about defrauding buyers. I paused, watching her expression change from mockery to shock. And because I already sent copies of everything to my lawyer with instructions to deliver them to the police if anything happens to me. Vanessa's face lost all color. For a moment I thought she was going to faint or attack. Instead, she turned to Marcus, her eyes filled with fury. Did you know about this? Did you know she was spying on us? Marcus seemed equally stunned. No, I had no idea. Vanessa turned back to me, her voice trembling with rage. This isn't over. You won't get away with this. It's already over, Vanessa, I responded calmly. The choice now is yours. We can resolve this as a family or through the judicial system. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room, slamming the door hard enough to make the windows shake. Marcus remained motionless, as if trying to process everything that had happened. Do you really have all that evidence? He asked finally. I nodded. Every word, every plan, every document. Your father taught me to always stay 2 steps ahead. Marcus sank into his chair, covering his face with his hands. My God, what have I done? How did I let things get to this point? I approached him, and for the first time in weeks, put my hand on his shoulder. There's still time to fix things, son. But you have to make a decision. He looked at me, his eyes reddened. What should I do? First, cancel the sale of the Hilton Head property. Then, we need to talk honestly about your financial situation. I paused. And about the future of this family. Marcus nodded slowly. I'm going to call Reggie right now and cancel everything. Excellent. As for Vanessa, she's not going to accept this easily, he interrupted, worried. You don't know Vanessa like I do. She might do something impulsive, dangerous. That's why I have a plan B, I responded. And it's time to put it into practice. The next morning brought with it a strange feeling of calm before the storm. Vanessa hadn't returned home the previous night. Marcus said she was staying at a friend's house to cool her head. But the tension in his voice revealed that the situation was more complicated. The children, sensing the heavy atmosphere, asked questions none of us was prepared to answer. Where's Mama? Asked Layla during breakfast, her big eyes fixed on Marcus. She had to resolve some problems, sweetheart, he responded, avoiding my gaze. She'll be back soon. Jordan, always more perceptive than his sister, frowned. You fought again. She said she was going to take us away from here. Marcus paled. You heard that? Jordan nodded. She came into our room late last night, woke up Layla, and said she would come back for us, that she wouldn't let us stay with Grandma. A chill ran down my spine. Vanessa was unpredictable, and that threat couldn't be ignored. Marcus seemed to have reached the same conclusion. "I'm going to call the school and let them know that only Grandma or I are authorized to pick you up," he declared, hugging his children tightly. "And I'll talk to Mr. Jerome about a protection order." After the children were taken to school, Marcus made sure to accompany them to their classroom doors. We met with Jerome at his office. The lawyer listened attentively as we related the latest events, including Vanessa's threat. "This is serious," he commented, adjusting his glasses. "Based on the evidence you collected, Marilyn, and Marcus's admission about the fraudulent activities, we have sufficient grounds to request not only a protection order for you, but also a restraining order preventing Vanessa from approaching the children without supervision." Marcus looked devastated, but nodded in agreement. "I never thought it would come to this point, but I need to protect my children." "And what about the debts?" I asked, returning to the practical aspect of the situation. Marcus told me the situation is quite grave. Jerome opened a folder on his desk. "We did a preliminary survey. The total amount is approximately $1.2 million distributed among credit cards, bank loans, and less conventional sources." Marcus shrank in his chair. "Loan sharks," he clarified quietly. Vanessa turned to loan sharks. "That complicates things," Jerome admitted. "Those people don't usually follow legal channels for collection." "I'm willing to help pay those debts," I declared, "but with some conditions." Marcus looked at me surprised. "After everything we did, you still want to help?" "You're my son, Marcus, and those children are my grandchildren. I'm not going to abandon them." I turned to Jerome. "I want to establish a formal agreement. I'll pay the legitimate debts, but Marcus will need to go through financial counseling. And I want legal guarantees that they'll never again attempt to appropriate my properties." "We can draft that," Jerome agreed, taking notes. "I also suggest formally transferring the house to your name in the property registry to avoid any future confusion." "And the beach house?" Marcus asked hesitantly. "Vanessa mentioned something about that, but I never fully understood." "Your father bought that property as our retirement refuge," I explained. "It's a special place for me, Marcus. Maybe one day we can go there together, you, the children, and I, but for now I need it to be just my space." He nodded understandingly. "I understand, Mama, and I respect that." We spent the following hours outlining the agreement and initiating the legal processes for the protection order. When we returned home at the end of the afternoon, we sensed a strange presence as soon as we opened the door. The house had been ransacked. Drawers opened, closets searched, objects scattered across the floor. The immediate panic was for Jordan and Layla, but a quick call to the school confirmed they were still there participating in extracurricular activities. "Vanessa," Marcus murmured, looking around in disbelief. "She must have a spare key." I ran to the office, fearing the worst. The small safe behind the books was intact, but the desk drawer where Thomas kept less important documents had been forced open. Several folders were scattered across the floor. What could she have been looking for? I asked, more to myself than to Marcus. Maybe something she could use against us? "Some proof that you're not mentally fit?" he suggested, helping me pick up the papers. Among the scattered documents, I noticed the absence of something important: the original purchase contract for the beach house in Savannah. Although I had a copy in the safe, the original document contained details that Vanessa could use somehow. "We need to change the locks immediately," I declared, "and install a security system." Marcus was already on the phone contracting a locksmith and security company. "They'll be here in an hour," he informed after hanging up, "and I'm going to pick up the children from school right now." The feeling of violation was profound. This house, which had always been my sanctuary, now seemed vulnerable, exposed. I sat in Thomas's chair, trying to control the trembling in my hands. "Don't let it affect you," I whispered to myself. "Not now, not after everything you faced." When Marcus returned with the children, their faces reflected confusion at seeing the state of the house and the technicians installing security cameras and changing locks. "What happened here?" asked Jordan, looking around with wide eyes. "We had a small problem," Marcus responded with studied calm. But we're resolving everything. Layla ran to me, hugging me tightly. It was Mama, wasn't it? She did something bad. The girl's perception surprised me. Why do you think that, dear? Because she was very angry last night. She said she was going to get back what was hers, that you had stolen something important. I exchanged a worried look with Marcus. Vanessa was creating a dangerous narrative, maybe even poisoning the children against me. Layla, your grandmother didn't steal anything, Marcus affirmed firmly. In fact, this house always belonged to her and Grandpa. We were the ones who were confused about that. The girl nodded, still clinging to me. I knew it. Mama was lying again. Again? I asked gently. She lies all the time, Layla explained, with the devastating simplicity of children. She says she's going to take us on trips, but she never does. She promises gifts that never arrive. She says she loves us, but she yells a lot. My heart shrank. The children had been silent witnesses to much more than we imagined. That night, after Jordan and Layla went to bed, Marcus and I sat on the porch. The new security lights illuminated the garden, creating dancing shadows over the plants that Thomas cultivated with such care. I never thought it would come to this point, Marcus confessed, his voice overwhelmed with emotion. A security system to protect us from my own wife. Sometimes people aren't who we think they are, I responded, observing the stars that were beginning to dot the night sky. Your father used to say that a person's true character is revealed in adversity. And my character? Marcus asked, looking at me with eyes full of guilt. What did it reveal? That you still have much to learn, son, but also that you have the courage to recognize your mistakes and try to correct them. He smiled weakly. Thank you for not giving up on me. Mama. A mother never gives up, I responded, touching his hand gently, even when the path seems impossible. That night I slept in the master bedroom for the first time since Thomas's death. His scent still floated subtly in the air, in the pillows, in the curtains. I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in weeks. The battle wasn't over yet, but I was back in the place that belonged to me. I woke up startled by the sound of the phone ringing. The digital clock on the nightstand showed 3:17 in the morning. Hello? I answered, my voice hoarse from sleep. Mrs. Marilyn? The voice on the other end was grave, professional. This is Detective Monroe from the Atlanta Police Department. We have a situation that requires your presence immediately. My heart raced. What happened? My son? My grandchildren? No, ma'am. It's about your daughter-in-law, Vanessa Hayes. She was arrested attempting to break into your property in Savannah. The cold light of the police station contrasted with the still dark sky when I arrived, accompanied by Marcus. We had left the children in the care of a trusted neighbor, promising to return as quickly as possible. The drive to the station was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Detective Monroe received us with a serious expression. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes that revealed an entire career witnessing the worst of humanity. Mrs. Marilyn, Mr. Marcus, thank you for coming so quickly, he said, leading us to his office. We have a delicate situation on our hands. How did Vanessa get to Savannah? I asked, still trying to process the information. Apparently she took a flight yesterday afternoon, the detective explained, consulting his notes. A neighbor in the historic district called police around 1 a.m. when he noticed someone trying to force entry. When our officers arrived, they found Mrs. Vanessa Hayes inside the house searching through cabinets and drawers. Marcus covered his face with his hands. My God, was she looking for something specific? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. According to her statement, she was looking for documents that would prove the property belongs to her husband and not to you, ma'am. The detective raised an eyebrow. Obviously, we verified the property registry and confirmed that the house has been in your name for over 5 years. Is she being charged with breaking and entering? Marcus asked, his voice trembling. Yes, and also property damage. She broke a window to get in. I felt a chill. Was she armed? Was there anyone else with her? No, ma'am. She was alone and carrying no weapons, only tools for the break-in. He paused. However, we found something concerning in the rental car she was using. The detective removed from a folder a set of falsified documents, deeds, powers of attorney, contracts, all with signatures that were supposedly mine, but were obviously fake. She planned to sell the property, I concluded, feeling a mixture of rage and sadness. That appears to be the case, Detective Monroe confirmed. She even mentioned a buyer who was already interested. Marcus was pale, as if each new revelation was a physical blow. Can I see her? The detective hesitated. We don't normally allow it, but considering the circumstances, he sighed. 5 minutes, and an officer will be present the entire time. While Marcus followed a uniformed police officer toward the detention area, Detective Monroe directed his attention to me. Mrs. Marilyn, I must inform you that Mrs. Vanessa made some serious allegations against you. She claims that you're mentally incapacitated and that you manipulated your son against her. I smiled sadly. I can imagine. We're not giving credence to those claims, he assured me, especially considering the evidence of falsification and breaking and entering. But I thought you should know. I nodded gratefully. What happens now? She'll remain in detention until the control hearing, probably tomorrow. Then the judge will decide if she'll respond in freedom or not. The idea of Vanessa in a prison cell was disturbing. Despite everything, not out of compassion for her, but for my grandchildren who would have to deal with that reality. If I didn't want to proceed with the charges? I asked. The detective looked at me seriously. That's your right. But considering the evidence of a larger scheme of fraud and falsification, the district attorney would probably proceed anyway. When Marcus returned, his eyes were red. Without saying a word, we left the police station into the fresh dawn air. The sky was beginning to lighten on the horizon, announcing a new day. How was she? I asked as we walked to the car. Unrecognizable, he responded quietly. Not physically, but it was like I was looking at a stranger. She didn't even show remorse. She said I betrayed her, that I chose your money over our marriage. I'm sorry it came to this point, son. He took a deep breath, running his hand through his disheveled hair. You know what's the worst part? A part of me still worries about her. I still remember how she was at the beginning, before all this. The drive home was in reflective silence. When we arrived, the sun had already risen completely, bathing our house in golden light. Almost ironic, considering the circumstances. The children were still sleeping when we entered. Ms. Clara Jefferson, our neighbor, was in the kitchen preparing coffee. Everything all right with you folks? She asked, concern evident in her kind face. The children slept peacefully, didn't even notice you left. We thanked her for her help, and Marcus walked her to the door. I remained in the kitchen contemplating the coffee cup that Ms. Clara had served me. The normalcy of the scene, the coffee aroma, the morning light entering through the window, the tick-tock of the clock on the wall contrasted brutally with the chaos our family was facing. Marcus returned and sat across from me, rubbing his tired eyes. What are we going to tell the children? He asked. It was the million-dollar question. How do you explain to children that their mother was arrested for trying to steal from their grandmother? How do you soften that truth without lying completely? The truth, but in a way they can understand, I responded finally. That their mama did something wrong and needs to face the consequences. That it doesn't mean she doesn't love them, but that sometimes adults make serious mistakes. Marcus nodded slowly. And what about us? About our future? One day at a time, son. First, we're going to ensure that you and the children are well emotionally and financially. Then we'll rebuild whatever is possible. That morning, when Layla and Jordan came down for breakfast, their sleepy faces lit up at seeing us. No matter what had happened, they were still children, resilient, hopeful, capable of finding joy even in the most difficult circumstances. During breakfast, Marcus found the courage to begin the difficult conversation. Children, we need to talk about something important, he said, carefully choosing his words. Mama, she did some wrong things and now she's with the police. Layla's eyes widened. Is Mama a criminal? No, sweetheart, Marcus responded quickly. She just made some very bad decisions that hurt other people. Jordan, always more perceptive, looked directly at me. She tried to hurt Grandma, didn't she? His intuition surprised me. She tried to take things that didn't belong to her, Jordan, and that's wrong, no matter who does it. When is she coming home? Layla asked, her little voice trembling. Marcus hesitated. We don't know yet, Princess. It might take some time. But what matters is that I'm here, Grandma is here, and we're going to take care of you with all our love. The following days were a mixture of legal procedures and emotional adjustments. Vanessa ended up being released after the control hearing, but with severe restrictive measures, prohibition from approaching me, the house, or the children without judicial supervision, plus having to wear an electronic monitoring bracelet. Marcus initiated the divorce process, a decision that, although painful, brought a sense of finality that we all needed. With Jerome's help, we began to untangle the complex web of debts left by Vanessa and create a plan to resolve them without compromising the children's future. A week after Vanessa's arrest, I decided I needed time for myself to process everything that had happened and reconnect with my own inner peace. I'm going to the beach house for a few weeks, I announced during dinner. Are you sure you want to go alone, Mama? Marcus asked, worried. I smiled, touching his hand gently. Yes, this is a special place for me, where your father and I plan to spend our old age together. I need to reconnect with those memories, with that part of me that got forgotten in the recent months. Layla, who had become extremely protective of me, frowned. But what if Mama tries to go there again? Don't worry, dear. The house has a security system now and the neighbors are alert. Besides, I added, winking at her, your grandmother is much more clever than she appears. The morning of my departure, the children gave me drawings to decorate the beach house. Jordan had drawn a boat sailing on a vibrant blue sea, while Layla created a portrait of our family, Marcus, Jordan, her, and me, holding hands under a radiant sun. So you won't feel lonely, she explained. Hugging me tightly, Marcus accompanied me to the car, helping with the suitcases. Before saying goodbye, I held his face between my hands. As I did when he was just a boy, I'm proud of you, son, of the way you're dealing with all this. How you're taking care of the children. His eyes moistened. I learned from the best, Mama. You and Papa. The trip to Savannah was peaceful, an opportunity to reflect on everything that had happened and everything that was still to come. Upon arriving at the beach house, I was greeted by the sound of waves and the scent of salt air that I loved so much. The window broken by Vanessa had already been repaired, and the security company had installed cameras and alarms as requested. Despite that, upon entering, I could still feel the remnants of the invasion, not in the walls or furniture, but in the energy of the place, in the subtle feeling of violation. I spent the rest of the day cleaning, organizing, reclaiming that space as mine. I put the children's drawings on the refrigerator, opened all the windows to let the sea air circulate, changed the sheets, and arranged my clothes in the closet that Thomas and I used to share. That evening I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, watching the stars reflected in the ocean. The locket with Thomas's photo rested against my chest, a constant reminder of his love and foresight. You were right all along, my love, I whispered to the starry sky. About Vanessa, about protecting what we built, about giving me the means to defend myself. A gentle breeze caressed my face as if Thomas were responding from beyond. I closed my eyes and allowed, for the first time in a long time, tears to flow freely. Not just tears of sadness for the loss or recent trauma, but also tears of relief, of liberation. Here, in this refuge by the sea, far from the chaos and painful memories, I could finally begin to heal. I could reconnect with the woman I was before all this ordeal, the woman Thomas loved for almost 4 decades, the woman who had found the strength to face one of the greatest betrayals she could imagine. And as the waves broke rhythmically on the beach, carrying away fragments of pain with each retreating tide, I began to glimpse a future different from what I had imagined, but still full of possibilities, A future where I wouldn't be just Thomas's widow or the grandmother relegated to a back room, but Marilyn, complete, resilient, owner of her own story. 3 months passed since my arrival at the beach house. Autumn was beginning to give way to winter, bringing stronger winds and cooler nights. But I had found a new rhythm, a new normalcy in this place that was now truly my home. Every morning, I walked barefoot on the beach, feeling the cool sand between my toes and letting the waves occasionally touch my feet. I had made friends with other residents of the area, mainly retirees like me, people who understood the value of shared silence while we watched the sunrise. Marcus and the children visited me every 2 weeks, bringing with them stories of a life slowly rebuilding itself. Jordan was excelling in school, especially in mathematics, while Layla had discovered a passion for drawing that went far beyond childish scribbles. Marcus, for his part, seemed more centered, more present as a father and as a son. "How are things going with the therapist?" I asked during one of those weekends while we prepared lunch together. "Surprisingly well," he responded, chopping vegetables with newly acquired precision. "Dr. Camille Rivers says I'm making significant progress in recognizing patterns of codependency." I smiled, proud of his openness to seek help. "And the children?" "Jordan is handling it well. You know how resilient he is. Layla still has occasional nightmares, but the art therapy is helping a lot." He paused hesitantly. "Vanessa requested supervised visits." My heart sank. Despite everything, she was still the mother of those children. "And how do you feel about that?" "Conflicted," he admitted. "Part of me wants to protect them completely, but I know they need their mother, even with all her problems." He looked at me with questioning eyes. "What do you think?" "I think the children deserve the opportunity to maintain a relationship with their mother as long as it's safe and healthy," I responded honestly. "Supervised visits seem like a good start." He nodded, relieved by my understanding. "The criminal process is still ongoing, but her lawyer managed to get a deal for her to receive psychiatric treatment instead of serving time in prison. That's best for everyone, especially for Jordan and Layla." That afternoon, while the children played on the beach under our watchful eyes, Marcus handed me an envelope. "The divorce papers were finalized yesterday," he explained, "and we also managed to resolve most of the debts with your loan." "I don't know how to thank you, Mama. It's not a loan, Marcus. It's an investment in the children's future, in your future." I squeezed his hand. "Your father would have done the same." That evening, after everyone went to sleep, I sat on the porch as had become my ritual. The ocean was restless, reflecting my own thoughts. The journey of the recent months seemed almost surreal, from the humiliation of being relegated to a utility room to the empowerment of reclaiming control of my life. I remembered the day after Thomas's funeral, when Vanessa threw my suitcases into the driveway and declared that the house now belonged to her. In that moment I felt so small, so defeated. Who could have imagined that that humiliation would be the catalyst for such a profound transformation? The next morning I woke to the sound of children's laughter. Jordan and Layla were on the beach with Marcus building an elaborate sand castle. I watched them from the porch, my heart overflowing with a love that seemed almost painful in its intensity. "Grandma, come see our castle." Layla shouted upon seeing me, waving enthusiastically. I went down to the beach, feeling the sand gradually warming under my feet as the sun rose on the horizon. The castle was impressive. Towers, moats, even an improvised drawbridge made with little sticks. "It's Grandma's house," Jordan explained seriously. "But better, because it has a guardian dragon." He pointed to a sand formation that, with some imagination, could be interpreted as a dragon. "And who lives in this castle?" I asked, entering into the game. "All of us," Layla declared with conviction. "You, Daddy, me, Jordan, and Grandpa Thomas, too, like a good ghost that protects us." Marcus caught my gaze over the children's heads, his eyes moistened. "It's a beautiful idea, isn't it, Mama? All of us together, protected." I nodded, unable to trust my voice in that moment. The simplicity of Layla's vision, Our family united, even with its imperfections and absences, touched something deep within me. After lunch, while the children rested, Marcus and I walked along the beach. The afternoon sun created golden reflections on the water, and seagulls soared lazily overhead. "I've been thinking," he said after a long, comfortable silence. "Maybe we could sell the house in Atlanta." I looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure? You grew up in that house?" "Yes, but there are too many difficult memories there now. For me, for the children." He gently kicked a pebble in the sand. "I was thinking of buying something smaller, maybe closer to here. The children love the sea and being near you." "I would love that," I responded honestly. "But I don't want you to make that decision because of me." "It's not just because of you, Mama. It's for all of us." He smiled, a smile that reminded me so much of Thomas's that my heart ached. "I think we need a fresh start." That night, after Marcus and the children left on the last flight back to Atlanta, the house was strangely quiet. I had grown accustomed to the tranquility of my solitary routine. But after a weekend of laughter and conversations, their absence was almost physical. I sat on the sofa with a cup of tea, leafing through a photo album that Thomas had meticulously organized over the years. Our wedding, Marcus's birth, family vacations, birthdays, graduations, an entire lifetime captured in images. When I reached the last pages, I found something I hadn't noticed before, a small envelope attached to the back cover. Carefully, I removed it and found another letter from Thomas, written in his familiar handwriting. "My beloved Marilyn, if you're reading this, it means you found our refuge by the sea. I hope this place brings you the peace and strength you deserve after everything you've surely faced. I know our son, and I know the influences around him. If things went as I suspected they might, you've probably had to fight harder than any woman should have to fight. But you did it, didn't you? You found your strength, you protected what we built, and you showed everyone who you really are. This house, this place, was always meant to be yours. Here you can be free, be yourself, be the incredible woman I fell in love with all those years ago. Don't let anyone make you feel less than the queen you are. Build new memories here, my love. Invite Marcus and the grandchildren. Fill this place with laughter again. But most importantly, remember that you are complete, you are enough. You are worthy of all the love and respect in the world. Until we meet again, with all my eternal love. Thomas." Tears flowed freely down my face as I held the letter against my heart. Even in death, Thomas continued to love me, protect me, guide me toward healing and wholeness. 6 months later, Marcus found the perfect house, a charming cottage just 15 minutes from my beach villa. The children were thrilled with the move, especially Layla, who had already claimed the room with the best view of the ocean. On the day they officially moved in, we had a barbecue on my beach. Jordan and Layla ran in and out of the waves while Marcus and I sat on the porch, watching them with the contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. "You know what, Mama?" Marcus said, sipping his sweet tea. "I think Papa would be proud of how everything turned out." I looked at the locket around my neck, then at my son, then at my grandchildren playing in the surf. "Yes," I said, smiling through happy tears. "I think he would be." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Layla ran up to us, her small hands cupped around something precious. "Look what I found, Grandma," she exclaimed, opening her palms to reveal a perfect seashell, smooth and golden. "It's for you, so you'll always remember that you're home." I took the shell, feeling its warm smoothness, and pulled my granddaughter into a tight embrace. Home. Yes, this was home, not just the house, not just the location, but this feeling of being surrounded by love, respect, and the knowledge that I had found my strength when I needed it most. That night, as I sat alone on my porch with the seashell in my hands and Thomas's locket around my neck, I thought about the woman I was 6 months ago, broken, humiliated, Relegated to a utility room by people who should have loved and protected me. That woman felt so far away now, like a character from someone else's story. The waves continued their eternal rhythm, and somewhere in their sound, I could swear I heard Thomas's voice whispering, "Well done, my love. Well done. Your support truly keeps me going." And if you'd like to be a source of inspiration for others too, give this story a like and subscribe. Together, we can reach and help even more people. I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving. I was home. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Now I'm curious, after this story, which words stayed with you the most? Write them in the comments. Let's see which ones touch the most hearts.